Hiya! Welcome to my fun series of how I made my own idol costume from scratch, like a madman. I want to take you on a journey from start to finish on how I made this idol costume, from concept to pattern drafting, sewing, and the finishing touches for my new upcoming single, Berry Virus! This is the first time that I'm designing an original idol costume for myself, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. A lot of this process is actually quite similar to how I would tackle a graphic design, motion graphic, or illustration brief. What style do you want your idol personality to portray? For me, I put myself into the cute category, so I want my visuals to stay within the cute aesthetic. I love the concept of cyber, specifically in a digital context. Think of idol groups like Berrybeanpie, Perfume, Cyber, Nanimono, Big Angel, and Wasta. As a 2D anime idol enjoyer, I also like to take inspiration from fictional idols, such as Rina Tennoji and Ruby Kurosawa from Love Live, Photon Maiden, Unicorn, and subunits like Azalea. What keywords do you want to describe your personality, concept, or song? For me, I would say my keywords would be shiny, metallic, glittery, sparkly, pink, silver, white, Y2K, digital, rainbow, holographic, iridescent, cute, cyber, girly, femme, Eurobeat, electronic, kinda jazzy, flowy, and sassy. I love songs that delve into the cute, dempa, and electronic cyber themes. Find your references online on Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram. It's good if you search in the hashtags such as海外 idol, overseas idol, or just your general idol. And if you happen to know these terms in Japanese, even better. For my idol costume, I took inspiration from Berrybeanpie, Big Angel, and general Y2K cyber fashion. Also, take into account features of clothing that you love and incorporate them into the concept drawings. You can also do the opposite and figure out what features you hate to wear. You can also take your skills into account and what will be easiest for you to sew. Or if you want to challenge yourself with a new type of garment or feature to sew. It's okay to simplify your concept when needed. And finally, you don't have to do what I'm doing and make an extra fancy complex idol costume to release any original music. You can use your own wardrobe as part of your style and branding. For example, my idol group, we dress in Jidaike or Ryo-san-gata style because we love J fashion and it matches our idol colors, pink and black. Discover what you love and what you don't love. Your vision will truly come to life. Thank you for listening to me yap about concept art. Stay tuned for more progress on this iconic costume. Why hello there! Welcome back to my series of how I made my own idol costume from scratch. Today, we're going to be diving into the drafting section of the costume, including pattern drafting, finding garment styles and shapes, and tips before you start working with your final fabrics. If you're lucky, you can use commercial patterns to help you create nice fitting garments. But if you're blessed with a plus-size body like me, or if you have an unconventional idea in mind, drafting up your own patterns is the way to go. What I like to do is I like to search up YouTube tutorials for pattern drafting, especially ones built with your body in mind. Like for me, I would find as many plus-size pattern drafting videos as I can. Pattern drafting is a whole other extra skill that you technically don't have to worry about, but it's super beneficial for creating your own fully custom look. The good thing about pattern drafting is you can take a basic pattern block and you can build off them to create the shapes and cuts that you're after. Where do I find tutorials to draft my patterns? YouTube is my best friend for finding tutorials on anything related to sewing and pattern drafting. You can find very specific niche tutorials on YouTube, such as making a nice rolled chiffon hem. You can find video tutorials from seamstresses and sewists who work in dance costumes, ice skating, gymnastics, theatre, belly dancing, sports, bridal, and even cosplay, because a lot of those people, they have experience sewing for sports and physical activity, which is part of the idol activities that you do. How do I find out what that shape on that piece of clothing is. You find the image of the specific thing that you are after, you pop it into Google Lens or Google Image Search, and it will help pin you in the direction of garments with a similar style than the thing that you are after. Another very caveman way to go about finding things is to type out keywords to describe the style of a piece. When I was trying to find out the term for a butterfly sleeve, the keywords that I popped into Google were flowy, chiffon sleeves, short sleeve, pleated sleeves. And then that led me to terms such as angel wing sleeves and butterfly sleeves. You should always do a sewing test with similar fabrics before working with your final fabric. This is how you figure out how certain fabrics sit and drape on you or your body for, and how it works for the cut and style, and figure out how to adjust your patterns from there on. Thanks for keeping up with my series. From here onwards, we'll get into creating the idol costume using the final fabrics. Hi! Already back to learn more about my handmade idol costume? Well, today, you get to learn about the trials and tribulations of sewing my shirt. All of these countless hours of sewing is for my upcoming single, Berry Virus! As you see here, I use my own self-drafted patterns for this costume. I love mixing different textures together, such as matte, shiny, and glittery fabrics. And that's something I've realized is a big part of creating an idol costume, is having a mixed, balanced amount of textures throughout the costume. I noticed lots of idol costumes were busy around the chest, and for me, I don't feel comfortable dancing with a lot of elements on my chest, so I prefer to keep the chest area simple, yet complex, with a heart cutout. And it took me multiple tries to figure out the right techniques to make it look as clean as possible. I used leftover nude mesh fabric from my Iris or A-Set cosplay from The Somnium Files. Now, you're gonna find me crazy for this, but I created my own bias binding in silver and hot pink. This was one of the more time-consuming parts of this build, but I think it was worth it in the end because I could use it for both my shirt and my skirt. For my first attempt at the sleeves, I used a hot pink lame fabric for the butterfly sleeve. I didn't like the result this fabric gave, so I unpicked it from my shirt. It was at this point where I ended up making 2 versions of this shirt with my nice fabric, because I wasn't fully happy with how the first shirt turned out. I changed the white fabric from a full stretch in the first shirt to a white stretch satin in the second shirt, because there was already pink fabric with high stretch in the garment. This also gives extra texture in the top to mix shiny with matte fabrics. I saw a lot of idol costumes with short frills that came out of the shoulders, so I wanted to incorporate this in my own design. At first, I didn't like the shape of it unironed as it emphasized my rounded shoulders. Ironing these frills down and sewing the edges down with a top stitch helped improve the shape dramatically. I ended up adding a secret extra layer of frills underneath my sleeve to keep the top frilly layer up and give off the illusion of more volume in the shoulders. For the collar, I used pink stretch fabric, which I folded and ironed like bias tape, but I didn't cut it on the bias. Shh, it's stretch fabric. And finally, I added lace on the bottom of my shirt to connect it to my skirt, which also has lace on the bottom. Thank you for watching! See you in the next part where I show off one of my favorite parts, the skirt! Hey, you're finally awake! You were wondering when the next part of my work in progress continues, right? Well, we have more sewing to get through. Let's dive right into one of my favorite parts of the costume, the skirt. I went through many different concept changes before creating the final skirt as is. I originally wanted to have a more complex design in the top half of the skirt, such as circuit board design to tie it in with technology and computers, but this was going to be too time consuming for me to cut and iron on vinyl by hand, and to figure out the placement for each part of the design. From the drafting stage, I figured out a full circle skirt pattern worked best for the cut that I wanted, and for giving the ultimate twirls while dancing. I went through many trials and errors during the drafting stage, where I initially planned to have a straighter cut skirt, such as an A-line or a quarter circle skirt. This cut is seen in lots of Y2K fashion, but I didn't like how that looked on my body personally, so I stuck with a full circle skirt instead, which I love the look on my body. This was the first time I added horsehair braid into a costume, where I sewn it into the bottom of the skirt. This brings bounciness to the skirt without the need for a petticoat. The pink rainbow chiffon is one of my favorite fabrics. As soon as I saw it, I knew I had to revolve my skirt and costume around making this fabric work. It's super pretty when the light hits, but it's also kind of slippery to sew with because it's chiffon. At first, I added a silver ribbon on the bottom of the pink chiffon, but then I realized I didn't like how it draped with it on, so I unpicked it. Finally, I hand-sewn these cute sequin strawberries onto my skirt as an extra personal detail. Luckily, they arrived before my photo shoot. I chose to go with the sequin ones because it matches the idol theme and the costume color palette. I also ordered red strawberry buttons, which I kept for my bow. Now, let's admire the pretty skirt! Thank you so much for tuning into the work in progress of my pretty costume! Finally, we'll be going into detail of making my accessories, such as the leg warmers, wrist cuffs, and bows. Welcome back to the final installment of my idol costume work in progress. Today, we'll be focusing on the accessories, such as leg warmers, wrist cuffs, and hair bows. In case you didn't know, I created this whole costume for my upcoming single, Berryvirus! This is my first time making leg warmers for an idol costume, as I've made my own for my Clover cosplay a while ago. Firstly, I took my own leg measurements such as the knee circumference, knee to foot length, and the circumference of my shoe just so I'd have more room at the bottom. I used a lot of maths brain in the drafting stage to figure out how many centimeters apart each element would be. My main goal was to keep the bottom plain, but add more decoration as it got closer to the top. This is because it's more likely to get dirty closer to the ground. I wanted a simple, yet effective and fun design for the leg warmers. The strawberries are made out of glitter foam. So far, I relied on sticking them on with the original glue on the foam, but I will need to sew them down for future dancing in mind. I went for diamond shapes for the strawberry seeds because it was easier to cut out of the foam, and it matches the angular sections of the leg warmer. Finally, I added an elastic channel into the top which I didn't sew closed. This was just in case I wanted to make it tighter or replace the elastic in the future. And here are the leg warmers in their glory! For the wrist cuffs, it was originally going to be one long arm warmer and one short wrist cuff. Then I figured after making most of my costume, it would swallow a lot of my body up, so I scrapped that from my original drawing. I decided to make short wrist cuffs, but make it interesting by using different colours for each arm. I sewn on a mix of white and pink lace onto each cuff, and iridescent AB pink lace from my stash for extra sparkle. Finally, I sewn different colour strawberry notions like on the skirt onto each cuff to tie in the strawberries throughout the costume. Look how cute they are! Finally, for my hair bows, I kept the hair bows on the simpler side than I usually do. My first idea was to incorporate the light pink rainbow chiffon fabric into the bow, but I didn't like how it sat with everything else. I incorporated red strawberry buttons to tie it in with the strawberries on my leg warmers. I used a cute heart trim I had sitting in my stash, and the pointy ends fit the angular cuts in my costume. These bows have the simplest design out of everything, but when paired with my whole costume, it really works well together. Thank you for coming on this huge journey with me to see how I made my whole costume. I'm so excited to share these amazing photos with you. Get hyped for Berryvirus!